Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS strategy video for the 2021 Farmers Insurance Open. And basically what we cover in this video, usually like to recap what we covered in the previous two videos this week. If you haven't seen them, please go check them out. The preview video and the course fit. And this video will take pieces of both of those. We'll talk about tee time pairings as well as strokes gain buckets, which obviously of the bucket system if you followed me for a while. Incorporate that all together and find our best plays, which for this tournament, I'm actually going to unveil an optimizer that I've been working on. So we'll use the optimizer to find the best play. Timestamps are in the description below. Also, chapter mode is enabled, so you can use the progress bar to see, what each segment is, essentially. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to start it a little different than we typically do. I'm going to start with tee time pairings. We're going to kind of use the tee time pairings, which ones are favorable, which ones aren't. Then do a recap of what we learned during the preview, as well as the course fit. Then bring in the strokes gain bucket, because all of that together is kind of going to be us trying to find the sweet spot for the optimal lineup, essentially. I know it's kind of fool's gold to chase after it, but I do believe there are trends that we should follow, or that we can follow, to find the best optimal plays. So with that being said, let's go over the tee time pairings. Right now, it's currently sorted by salary. I'm going to go by game. I started with the South course since that's the predominant course here. We're going to be playing, or the PGA will be playing on this 3 times during this event. The cut will be made after each golfer's played the South course and the North course. That'll be played Thursday, Friday, and then they go to the South course the last 2 rounds. But since the South course is the more predominant one, we're going to go with that. Now, as I go through this, keep in mind a couple things. One being the North course plays about 2 strokes easier than the South course. So when you see a golfer's name that has the North course, more than likely they're going to be a better play for showdown slates. So if you are one that partakes in that, definitely consider the North course. Now, you don't have to make all 6 of your golfers on the North course. That usually never works out in showdown slates, not to win one, that is. We will have some guys from the South course play decent enough to make themselves one of the picks to win a showdown. So keep that in mind. I don't hear enough people talk about that. They always say North course is more favorable, but that's not to say use everybody from the North course. Another thing I want you guys to pay attention to, I have this color coded, and I did it different this week to make it simpler. Basically, I looked at DK average and scoring average, and anyone below or above. So anyone below the field average of scoring average ended up getting this red color. Anybody that was above DK average got the light green color, and anyone that was the same got the dark green color. I hope you guys can see the difference in colors here. I can see it on my end. Hopefully you guys can see it on yours, but if not, I'll use different colors next week. But that's how we're doing this. This is how I'm going to go about it. So again, if it's colored, it just means they're above they're above the DK average or below the scoring average. And the darker green means both, which is probably a more favorable play, essentially. All right, so let's go ahead and go through this. Actually, there's a third thing I also did. You can see over on the left column, I actually have this highlighted colors. Any of these green colors mean their collective sweet spot score is under 100 for the group. So if we go over here, highlight, you can see this is game 12. It includes Siwoo Kim, Gary Woodland, Martin Laird. It's highlighted. That sum total is 100. So it's right on the money. That's why it's highlighted. The darker the green, the lower it is. I think there's one that is pretty darn close to 10. Yeah, it's 11. And that's Rahm, Leishman, and Day. So just so you guys know, I'm more likely going to be talking about the guys that are highlighted, but as I'm scrolling through this, take a look. Right away in game 3, we have Emiliano Grillo, Maverick McNeely, and John Huh. All 3 golfers I've heard being mentioned throughout the industry. They're playing together. It might be beneficial to pair these guys up in your week-long slates, but also, maybe on Friday, pair these guys up for your showdown slate. And hey, maybe even do it, while they're playing on the South Course. I don't think it's really going to hurt you that much. We can see Cameron Davis is the only guy in his group that is better average in DK and scoring average, or for field average, that is. Damon is playing with Lucas Glover and Peter Malnati. They all have pretty decent scores, but with the model that I created, which was basically looking at a lot of things, looking at the bucket score first and foremost, then bringing in the official World Golf Ranking. I weighted, I did do scoring average and DK points, but I weighted that really small. I'm really just looking for potential in golfers. So don't be, worried about that. And then I think, let's see, what else did I do? Oh, I did course history and then grass stats. So I included that in my model. That's why these are highlighted the way they are. All right, let's continue going forward. Sorry to break that up a little bit. I probably should have explained that. Note to self, next time, talk about the sweet spot score right away and then get into tee time pairings. Gooch is playing with Wyndham Clark and Fabian Gomez. Those 2 guys together, this is a good showdown pairing to do, Gooch and Clark. A lot of people talking about Gooch, a lot of people talking about Clark. Personally, I shouldn't say a lot. There are a couple guys in the industry talking about them. I don't know. They're volatile to me. I know Taylor Gooch has a pretty good track record on this golf course, especially when you look at Data Golf's results versus expected. He's above at this golf course, so not terrible if you're looking for a play that maybe not a lot of people will be on, especially for showdown. Going through, we see another pairing that's together, Burns and Neesmith with Luke List. Personally, the bucket scores are dreadful. They're awful, but if we're looking at a showdown slate, that's not a terrible one. Scrolling down here. Again, I would recommend pausing the video at any time if you want to see these golfers a little bit more in depth, especially for their tee time pairings. Here's our first highlighted group: Siwoo Kim, Gary Woodland, Martin Laird. I do like Gary Woodland a lot this week. Siwoo, I'm not sure how I feel when it comes to, winning the week before and coming to a hard golf course like Torrey. But, I don't know how many other people are going to be on Siwoo. The same thought process probably goes through with that. But, in all, really, Gary Woodland probably should be highlighted here, but he did have kind of a bad stretch of tournaments during the fall season, which is the beginning of the PGA Tour season for this year. That's the only reason why he's not highlighted, but he played really well last week. So this isn't a terrible group to use. We can see Hovland is with Lonto Griffin and Michael Kim. Obviously, scratch Michael Kim off. We don't need to talk about him, but Hovland and Griffin, at least a good showdown slate pairing. If not, this, I don't think these 2 golfers paired together probably will account for maybe less than 20%. I don't think you really have to worry about, maybe not. I'm not sure. We'll see. I usually don't like to look at ownership. I don't project ownership. I have no idea, but I don't think this pairing together is going to be very popular. Scrolling down here, English, Palmer, and JB Holmes. Their collective score is 50, which is really good. Obviously, I highlight everyone that's under 100, but 50 is really good. They're all last week ones, meaning they didn't play last week, which is a really good thing heading into this tournament. Obviously, their last year buckets are a little different. I don't really like that for prospects for Harris English, especially for his price, but he's a good player. And if we're going to attack, showdown slate, Friday might be a good time to pair these guys up together. or one or two of them, or I should say two of them at least, but maybe a third one. It wouldn't be terrible. The next group's really interesting. Xander, Jordan Spieth, and Phil Mickelson. Jordan Spieth rates out as a 20 in the model. And I will tell you this, it's the best that he's really done, like model-wise. And a lot of it has to do with his POA stats. So if I were to scroll over, let's freeze this first. If I were to scroll over and look at his POA splits, yeah, so I mean 26.79% to finish inside the top 10 throughout his career, 36.41 overall. Not very good from last year, but hey, I don't know many people are going to play Jordan Spieth, and I don't think it's that terrible of a play. I mean, his course history doesn't look good, but the group altogether, not terrible. Basically they're going to see the same shot shapes the entire day. Xander usually hits a draw, but does like to hit a cut every once in a while. Spieth, obviously known for his draw, and Phil for his cut. He's a lefty, so it's going to work out pretty decent. All right, let's move on. So the next notable group probably is Homa and Stricker. I mean, this is a pretty interesting group to talk about. And not so much to talk about, but to look at, to use, to pair together. I mean, I think Max Homa is the only 1-3 in the group or in the whole field. It's not like a bucket score or a bucket combination you really want to attack, but it's not terrible to say the least either. I'm not going to pair him up with Steve Stricker. I just think this is a course that's probably a little too long for him nowadays, if I'm going to be completely honest. The next group is a good group. This one equals 52, so pretty close to the best one we've seen so far as we're going down here. And that's Patrick Reed, Bubba Watson, and Ricky Fowler. I mean, if you remember, Ricky Fowler was a part of a boy band in the golf world. I think they're called the Golfer Boys or something like that. Maybe those guys together end up being, they might draft off each other, as it's called, where if one guy's playing well, the other one's going to play well. I think these guys are friends. Hey, I don't know how many people are going to pair these guys up together. And they are on the North Course, so that's another good reason why to play them together. And they're all of these golfers are pretty good bent grass golfers, and that is what the North Course is known for, is bent grass. So I might be attacking that during showdown slates, especially round one showdown. Scrolling down, we see Vincent Whaley with Hank Lebioda. They both are highlighted here. They're playing the North Course. I'm sure no one's really talking about them, but might be worth a decent play. Not very good last week bucket scores, though, which is kind of an issue. This group is interesting. Louis, Doc Redman, and Henrik Norlander. They're all highlighted, but the bucket score doesn't really like Norlander that much. I think this group is pretty decent. I originally, so Doc Redman's in my dummy lineup. I like to, reserve a bunch of contests with a dummy lineup. He popped off because he was at 7,100, but then looking at his bucket score, like the combination, no 6-6 has ever finished inside the top 10. And I'm actually going to hold that, to this day. If anyone wants to make a bet with me, if Doc Redman makes the top 10, I will take that bet. I don't think he's going to. So, but with that being said, everyone is highlighted, meaning their potential of doing well, scoring well together is going to be high, which is worth considering. Charlie Hoffman with James Hahn playing the North Course on Thursday might be a good pairing to put up together. Same with Christopher Ventura and Roger Sloan, two young guys that have, I shouldn't say, I don't know about Ventura, but I've seen low rounds from Sloan. I guess if I were to go to the scoring and look at the low rounds, 66 and 64. Okay, so 64 is not really that low, and I'm looking at this column here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I won't play that. Scrolling down a little bit, coming down to Matt Jones, Adam Schenk. Jones, an Australian. I'm sure you've heard of the Australian narrative. I've definitely put it in my last two videos. If there was ever a reason to pair these up together, maybe that's one. But Matt Jones being a 6'3", not a very good bucket score. combination. I think we've seen it once inside the top 10 over the last 7 years, 8 years. But I'm not, I don't think I'm going to ride with that. Maybe in a Friday showdown slate might be a decent one to pair. Looking down, Cameron Tringale and Brian Stewart. I love when people pronounce this Cameron Tringale. It kind of shows your knowledge in this golf industry. So those listening, it's Tringale. Anyways, this group altogether, not terrible. Like Scott Harrington, low key is a very capable golfer. I'm not sure if it's going to be seen at at Torrey Pines, but in the future, keep your eye on him. His potential's high. So I would definitely consider pairing these guys up maybe in Friday's round. We'll see. Verdict is still out. Next group is really interesting as well. Will Zalatoris has been a favorite, for a lot of tournaments. He's playing with Sepp Straka and Johnny Vegas. Vegas actually rated out pretty decent. So I did initial rankings, and I didn't really bump up the official World Golf ranking as much as I did. Last week I put in salary, because obviously salary is kind of, for like DraftKings salary is kind of tied to odds of how well a golfer, or basically the anticipated result of a golfer, like their odds to win a golf tournament. So I figured, salary was a good way to bump the higher salary guys up, because a lot of 6K golfers were actually creeping up into the rankings, like top 10 rankings, and that should never happen. So my way to kind of safeguard that was just to do by salaries. Now I've done it by official World Golf ranking, which I think it's a little bit better to do it that way. But either way, Vegas, I think at one point in time when I first did my model, when I ran my model, he was like 20th for SweetSpot score. To me, that was kind of concerning, because Vegas shouldn't garner that kind of, ranking or whatever you want to call it. But either way, still pretty solid. And this group together is going to be I don't know if a lot of people are going to be on these guys. So I like it. I might play some Vegas. I might pair him up with Zalatoris. We'll see. Not sure. Your best group in this whole entire tournament. I mean, obviously this can be debatable, but when it comes to the SweetSpot score, John Rahm, Mark Leishman, Jason Day, they are all last week ones. This is by far the best bucket combination. It has shown up 22% over the last 8 years. So think about that. Over the last 8 years, we've seen a 1-1 inside the top 10, 23% or 22%. So you round up, it's 23%. Pretty good chances. And I think there are 7 or 8 1-1s. I bet one of these guys is going to finish inside the top 10. I mean, John Rahm has the best odds. That's like a no-brainer. But what if 2 of these guys, the likelihood of 2 of these guys to show up inside the top 10, pretty good. And oh, by the way, every single year, there's been at least 1-1 inside the top 10. There was only 1 year where only 1 showed up. Otherwise, every other year had multiple. Last year 1, last week 1. So keep that in mind. Going down to the next group, Cameron Davis, Jason Kokrak, Dylan Fratelli. This seems like a really good group to use. Not only is their SweetSpot score collectively under 100, they all are better than field average for DraftKings points and scoring average. So this group together might be pretty good to pair up in showdown slates. Charles Howell III, Scott Piercy. This is the next group we're talking about. Not terrible, especially if you want to pair them up on a Friday together. I think, I don't know if these guys are friends, but they're around the same age, I believe. Yeah, 41, 42. It wouldn't surprise me if they were, friends on tour, just because they're the same age, played probably the same amount, not so much the same amount, but started on tour probably around the same age, that kind of thing. Might be a good familiarity thing. Might be worth a play. Next one, Streelman. I don't like the bucket score, but there were a lot of good things to be said, or at least that he said. He was on one of the PGA Tour radio shows. I don't remember which one, but he was talking about how he got sick during the off season. I think he did get COVID, and the quarantine was difficult with his game and stuff like that. But he, like, before the week of the American Express, he was feeling really good about his game. Feels like he turned a corner. So, Streelman, savvy vet, 6K. We know we need a 6K. We'll bring that up coming up shortly. Might be a decent play. I don't know if I'd pair him up with Streb, and I know I wouldn't pair him up with Tway. So I don't know. You guys can take with that as you will. The second best group, I think it's the second best group, would be this one. And I absolutely love it. Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, Matthew Wolff. Rory and Wolff will be seeing the same shot shapes. Koepka's going to be the only guy kind of on the outside. He hits a fade. The other two guys hit draws. So I actually, at first, I was kind of skeptical about a decent showing for Matt Wolff. But you're putting Matt Wolff together with two, elite golfers, and one of them is going to be, you're going to match him with distance. You're going to have same types of clubs coming into the hole. I think this just helps both of those golfers out. I'm really liking it. I do like Rory. He's the number one ranked golfer in my model. Like, give me all the Rory possible. I really like Rory, and pairing him up with Matt Wolff is totally doable. 9,100. Rory, it's good. And when we use the optimizer, I'm going to lock these two golfers in. We'll see what the optimal lineup comes out with. But either way, don't sleep on Brooks either. I don't really like the bucket score, but being a last year 2 kind of mitigates that. The lower the number, the better for either of those, and it's going to work out. So I like that. Scrolling down, our next decent group here, Sung J M, Cameron Champ, and Mackenzie Hughes. I like Mackenzie Hughes here. I guess if I was betting, I wouldn't mind 160 to 1 odds. I don't know if anyone's getting that anymore, but this group altogether, pretty decent, especially for a showdown slate. And it looks like Thursday they're at the North Course together. The group right underneath them is all highlighted as well. That's Schwartzel, Villegas, and Piercy. Or not Piercy, but Percy, Cameron Percy. I don't really care for that, to be honest. But it might be worth a play. And that's going to round out the rest of the tee times. So let's kind of go into a recap of the preview as well as the course history video, because this way now we can kind of collectively add everything together to go along with the strokes gained bucket that we'll come up with shortly. But the preview started with salaries, and basically the cream rises to the top at a tournament like this. And obviously, I'm going to keep using that word, this tournament has a bunch of elite golfers in it, more so than any of the recent tournaments we've seen. Tournament of Champions, yes, because obviously it's the tournament of past champions. But this whole fall swing, we maybe have seen like 2, 3 top 10 golfers in a field at one time. I don't even know how many we see this year, but let's double check. Okay, so we only have 3. I thought we would have more. But I guess if we're looking at top 20 golfers, we definitely have more top 20 golfers in this field than we've seen. I'm looking at all the guys, and I'm like, well, some of these guys were in the American Express. It feels like this field is much stronger than any other ones. And I know it is. I just don't know. Like, I can't give you a metric as to how much more it is. But either way, looking at salaries, the average salary is around $8,300. That's as much as DraftKings gives us per player is $8,300. That means, basically use up all your salary. And with that, we can scope out what we've seen in the top 5 most of the time and the top 10. And what we found out, we want a 10K golfer, at least one of them. Sometimes 2. When we were looking at optimal lineups, though, a lot of the time it was just one 10K golfer. So I do think, doing that is going to be way more beneficial than, say, pairing 2 of the guys up. Yeah, in 2018, optimal lineup would have used two 10K golfers. In 2019, definitely didn't use two 10K golfers, but I wonder if we could get there, you know, like doing something like this. Yeah, so that's 48.6. So you could do two 10K golfers. Could you do, yeah, and you could do an 11K. You can go 11, 10, find three 6Ks, and then do an 8. But that's not the optimal lineup. But it's doable, and it would have probably won you a GPP, honestly. So that's not out of the realm, playing two 10K and above golfers. In 2020, you know, it doesn't, we don't have, the optimal lineup did not have two 10K golfers in it and above. You actually had two guys at 11. That's going to be a little too pricey, a little too expensive. And I don't think we can even get there in this field when the top guy's only 11.3 and then the next guy's 11.1. That kind of savings doesn't really, you know, get us there. Although I guess you could pick 4 6K and 2 11K golfers. I guess it's doable. Anything's possible. Anyways, you know, we found out with salaries, definitely need to play a 10K golfer for sure. I think it would be silly not to, but I do believe also allocating some percentage of your lineups going against the grain a little bit. You know, in 2018, we did see 5 guys at the top or 6 guys at the top that were under 10K, and therefore, obviously, that would most likely be the optimal lineup. But I digress. We'll stop talking about that. We also talked about the bucket system. I showed you, you know, what buckets were really good, and showed you based off of the field of each tournament how many of those types of golfers finished inside the top 10. The highest range that we saw was the last year one buckets, it was 21%, 21.5%, not 22.5% like I already proclaimed, but 21.5%. Definitely want to consider that. And then you can see the rest of the numbers up here. Obviously, just follow where the last year bucket is. The last year bucket score is right here. You can see the total. You can see the percentage, what it looks like inside the top 10, the percentage of what it looks like total, you know, based off of everyone in the field. That's probably what I should name it, is field percentage. But either way, figured out those things. When it came to course fit, we really didn't get much of the course breakdown. You know, any shot shape's going to be okay here. We don't have to really worry about a draw versus a fade. So that was kind of a moot point. Tried to talk about tournament fact sheets, but the GCSAA did not provide them. And I looked before creating this video. They still aren't there. So again, I have no idea what that is. I don't know why we haven't seen anything yet. But just letting you guys know, the tournament fact sheets aren't available. We looked at weather as well and found out Thursday and Friday were going to be a little wet. Again, I strongly advise looking at weather the Wednesday night before, like a weather forecast. I think the weather's already shifted to like Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. Rain isn't terrible. Wind is the thing that we have to worry about. So definitely look at wind. Golfers don't mind playing the rain. The rain isn't really going to affect, you know, where your ball's going to curve to. Wind will. And wind is the hardest one to gauge when you are a professional golfer. So look for wind, not rain. Rain is okay. And it's going to soften up the golf course. And guys have all the equipment to deal with wet grips. Like, they're going to be fine in the rain. What else did we cover in the course fit? We looked at demographics. There weren't a lot of people from California that we really cared to use. We looked at grass stats and course history, and then came up with our best course fit plays by pricing tier. So go check that out if you want to find them. We're probably going to talk about a lot of the same guys, if I'm going to be honest. But let's go ahead and get into the strokes gain buckets. Oh, did not actually create them. Silly me. What I did do is I put them here. It's a bummer. I'm not going to redo this video, and I don't edit, so it's all live. What I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to sort by the strokes gain bucket, And you can see the number 1 here. What that indicates is the golfer's stats, if we look this way, all the way through are positive. So we're looking at tee to green, off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, everything's positive. When we look at strokes gained 2, we're looking at positive off the tee. So everyone here is positive off the tee, and they're positive putting. But there are negative stats within approach or around the green. When it comes to bucket 3, we are looking at positive off the tee, negative putting. Number 4 is going to be negative off the tee, positive putting. So if I go ahead and highlight all these, you can see negative off the tee and then positive putting. And then our number 5s are going to be negative off the tee and negative putting. And number 6 is going to be golfers who just don't have any stats. So that's how I've broken it up to. Negative off the tee and negative putting could be all things negative. Usually not a good sign. And if I were to go back to the strokes gained bucket, I apologize for not actually having this available. Usually you would see a list of golfers right here. I'm not sure if it would really be beneficial if I were to do it right now. Kind of want to, but you can see at the top with the columns, I have positive off the tee plus positive putting. Want to usually pick 2 to 4 of those guys. Positive off the tee, negative putting, somewhere between 1 to 3. Negative off the tee plus positive putting, 0 to 2. Negative off the tee and negative putting, 0 to 2. No strokes gained. I just left that blank. I haven't seen this until last week, which I guess is kind of something that I should bring up. Because if I'm going to sell you on this, it's going to be looking at last week and telling you this is what we've seen most of the time. Like if we were actually to look at how I meant for you guys to see this, this is what we would have came up with. You can see all the finishing positions, and as we look at each one of these buckets, you're going to see that it's going to staircase. Basically, we're at the highest pinnacle here with this would be bucket 2. As we go to bucket 3, it gets a little smaller. Go to bucket 4, it gets a little smaller, and then get to bucket 5, a little smaller. And that's, to me, kind of it's been a trend. You can see even bucket 5 has less golfers in it than bucket 4, 3, and it's pretty darn close to 2. Actually, it's the same. What am I talking about? It's the exact same amount. And you can see the difference in top 20 finishes between those 2 buckets. 1 top 20 for the negative off the tee, negative putting, and we had 9 top 10 for positive off the tee, positive putting. And these kind of coincide with each other. 1s are over here in the 2s as well, because everything positive is going to include positive off the tee plus positive putting. So when we go back to the Farmers Insurance, unfortunately I don't have that populated there. We're not going to really look at that. I can just have you look at this column right here. Basically, we're going to want to choose, and this is actually a good way to talk about these golfers as well, looking at this screen as opposed to the other one. We want to find, the best golfers, or perhaps anchor some of our lineups with some of these guys from the 1 to 2 buckets. Why don't we go ahead and just filter off? So when we're looking at 1s, and go by salary, we can see John Rahm at the top, Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele, Harris English, Brooks Koepka. All these guys, solid golfers. And if you wanted to start here, have no issue with that. I think if I were to say how many you want to pick out of this bucket, it's going to be, probably 2 golfers for sure. And it's just dependent on who do you want to choose. If we look at strokes gained 2, it's a little bit bigger. It's actually the same amount that we had last week. So there's 30 here total. In last week's tournament, I guess it's 31 total, but that's between 1 and 2. Kind of got a little confused there. So if I were to look, so there was only 31 total in this tournament. We actually have 45. So it's 14 more. We probably, you know, if you wanted to create a lineup with only these buckets, I wouldn't blame you. But we were looking at the bucket 2 for strokes gained, and that's headed by Rory McIlroy, Patrick Reed, Sungjae Im, Scotty Scheffler. Those are your 9K and above golfers. Patrick Reed, not too long ago, was actually in the strokes gained bucket 4 and crawled his way over to bucket 2, meaning he has positive off the tee and positive putting. So yeah, at one point in time, he was negative off the tee and negative putting. Obviously, crawled his way into this bucket, meaning he's probably been playing some pretty decent golf and might be worth the play, especially when we need a golfer over 10K. So I think out of all of the golfers, we have every single one that's over 10K in these 2 buckets. Meaning you're probably going to find a winner of any 5 of those guys right there, which I know isn't like going off as a deep end, but when the buckets kind of fall under that way, pretty decent. Bucket 3 is headed by Victor Hovland, Hideki Matsuyama, Bubba Watson, Will Zalatoris, and Ricky Fowler. Those are 8K and above. I do believe at least one guy will come out of this range for this bucket score to be inside the top 10. So I definitely would consider looking at any of these guys right here, honestly. And maybe Victor Hovland too. I mean, he wasn't originally on my radar when I first looked at all of this, but definitely now, more so than ever. But we do have some decent 6K golfers down here that maybe you choose from that list. I don't know. We'll see. Let's look at 4s really quickly. I'm going to try going through this pretty fast. We see Matthew Wolff there. If I am choosing this bucket, I'm only looking at one golfer, max of 2. And like, I like Wolff, I like Woodland, I do like Alex Noren. I don't mind playing Spieth. So basically what I'm telling you guys is if I'm playing any of these guys, I'm most likely not pairing them up together. Definitely going to keep this bucket low. Like I said, 2 maximum. That's it. I'm not playing anymore. I like some of the names here, but I'm going to keep it at 2. 1, yeah, we'll keep it at 2. Looking at 5s. Does anyone pop out here? Mark Leishman, last year's champ, is a strokes. This is going to be interesting because we have 2 golfers who are last year won, last week ones in this bucket 5 list, which, you know, if you like JB Holmes, I strongly advise not playing him with Mark Leishman. You know, I would only play one guy out of this, maybe a max of 2, but I think I'm going to stick to my 0 to 2. You only want to play 0 to 2 of these guys. And unfortunately, I can't really go through all of them. But when we go and create lineups on the optimizer, you're going to see who is good and who is not. And then 6, golfers who don't have stats. I think we saw Ryan Moore in this last week. I don't know. One event's not enough to put his stats through the PGA Tour, but you can see some of these guys. A lot of them not going to use, honestly. So those were all the different bucket combinations. I wish I had populated them before getting on. I don't know how I missed it, honestly. But I'm going to pull over the optimizer, and we're going to end this video pretty soon. But I have created an optimizer. Let's see here. We'll scroll in, zoom out. So hopefully you guys can see that pretty decently. I'm still messing around with this, but I absolutely love it. I won some money on the showdown, round 4 showdown last week by basically only adding the people with cuts and then whatever metric that I wanted to use. I'm using the SweetSpot score. Like, this is what would be the total score. I rank them on the spreadsheet you see. So I'm going to be, you know, we'll use the metric. You can see what the score is. I think I have it sorted by yeah, we have it sorted by metric and not by price. So you can see some of these guys that show up. If I run, actually I shouldn't say if I run the optimizer. The next piece that you see are my min and maxes for all of the different buckets over here. I put the min and max for each last year bucket, the min and max of each last week bucket, as well as the strokes gained bucket. I told you I wanted to play at least 2 strokes gain 1 golfers, but I'm actually going to change this to 3 for max. And for strokes gain bucket 2, we're going to go ahead and put 3 as well. But then you can see I definitely want to choose 1. So what this is going to end up spitting out to me is I'm going to have, you know, when I hit run optimizer, I'm going to have 5 golfers that fit this criteria. I might actually have 6 altogether, and then we'll see how everything pans out. But maybe I'll remove this a little bit later. But these are kind of my constraints, gosh, I can't think of what I want to call it. My locks for each of these buckets. So with that being said, when I run optimizer, this is going to be my number 1 lineup that I'm going to save. Rory McIlroy, Jason Day, Adam Scott, Harry Higgs, Gary Woodland, and Max Homa. So this obviously is looking at what the highest possible score I can have with all of these constraints right here. It's using all $50,000. I don't have it set to a min or anything like that, but I can go ahead, save that lineup. I mean, I don't mind all of this here. I was just messing around with it, but it's going to save my lineup for me, which is awesome. Like, this is going to be a lifesaver for me. I used to do it all by hand. You know, if I'm making 80 lineups, I am copying. I'll show you what I would do. We'd go here. Like, if I like Rory, I'll put Rory here. And this is just spreadsheet, right? Anyone who does spreadsheet lineups, you know, I'm going to put Rory in 26 of my lineups out of 80. So I would start like this, and then I'd put all my combinations and whatever. I like the idea because I can't just in my head optimize something, right? I can't just go, oh, you know what? Harry Higgs was a high score. I'm going to combine him with Scott, Day, Woodland, Homa. And then, yeah, Rory's one of my favorite guys, and I'll do it that way. But either way, this is awesome. This right here, based off the sweet spot score, this is your optimal lineup. So we'll see how it does. I'm definitely going to enter it into one of my winner take alls and see how well it does. Maybe I just don't think this is a lineup that's really unique, so I'm not sure if I would want to play in a GPP. But if it was a cash lineup, I guess I don't mind it. But if I wanted to not include Rory, actually, let's do it a different way. I told you that I wanted to pair up Rory and Matthew Wolff. So if I do that and run the optimizer, again, it's going to use all of the rules that I kind of have in place to bring out a lineup for me. And this lineup isn't terrible either. McIlroy, Scott, Higgs, Wolff, Streelman, and Francesco Molinari. It's a pretty good lineup. I don't mind it at all. So we'll save that one as well. Let's go ahead and remove this. Actually, you know what? Harry Higgs just shows up too much. I don't want to play Harry Higgs as much as this is showing me. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, no. Got to do it the other way. Got to hit no. Run my optimizer. And it's going to spit out a whole different lineup, which even this lineup is fantastic. I'm just going to save that one as well. McIlroy, Day, Wolff, Ortiz, Sabatini, Piercy. You know, Day's been showing up a little too many times. Let me go ahead and hit no. Let's see what it spits out instead. I'm sure it's going to be Adam Scott. It isn't. McIlroy, Bubba, Usti, Wolff, Sabatini, and Rafael Campos. Now, this is a GPP lineup right here. Let's go ahead and save that one too. Like, I have no issues with any of these lineups. But let's go ahead and say, you know, I don't want to play Rory and see if it'll pick Rahm. And it doesn't. It gives me a pretty balanced lineup with Jason Day, Bubba Watson, Adam Scott, Sungjae Im, Emiliano Grillo, and Harry Higgs. Again, that's too much Harry, and unfortunately for this optimizer, it's not going to randomize the 6K golfers for me. But I can go ahead and choose who I want to play and who I don't want to play. If I take him out, now it becomes super balanced with Matthew Wolff being my most expensive guy, Jason Day, Bubba, Adam Scott, Jason Kokrak, and Rory Sabatini. I'm going to save that one too. But I'm going to have so much fun doing this. I'm thinking about giving this away to all my loyal listeners at some point. I was thinking about doing it to, for this one. It's not, even if I give this to you, actually, why don't you go ahead? If you've gotten this far throughout the video, or if you skipped ahead, congratulations, you're lucky. If you want this, I'll send it to you. Hopefully you guys have Microsoft Excel. You can see what's behind the scenes if you want to learn how to do it. You can take apart how it's done. But either way, you can have this information. All you have to do is like this video and comment on it. Or if you are on Twitter, share the video. I don't really care about likes on Twitter, but if you share it and more people see it, all the better. If you do that, if you're on Twitter and you do that, I know people just share it anyways. Send me a DM. Say, hey man, I want that spreadsheet, and I'll send it to you. I'll give you this optimizer, and you can choose what you want in here. If I were to go ahead, put everything to 0, that is one thing I should have thought about doing. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, well, whatever. Go ahead, do this. I don't need to make it look pretty. I am kind of one of those types of people, though. Like, I want it all to look aesthetically pleasing. So we're going to go ahead and do that. You've made it this far. You don't mind, right? Okay. It doesn't look well. Oh, well, whatever. So everything is 0. And you can set your maxes over here as well. If you want to do all 6s, well, we just make everything look messy. So 0 to 6, that's the max. Let's see what the optimizer is going to choose. It actually took out one of them from the original lineup. Who was in the original lineup? Day. Nope, Day, Scott, still there. Gary Woodland and Max Homa. So it took those 2 golfers out, replaced one of them with Bubba and the other one with Robert Streb. So interesting. We're going to save that one too. But yeah, let me know if you want this. I will certainly send it out. Again, please do the things that I have asked. That way we can get a little bit more exposure to this. And hey, it's kind of a payment type thing. So either way, we're going to leave it there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.